Hello, friends and clients of Walker Gates Vela. I am Jennifer Walker Gates, immigration attorney. I'm here in Austin, Texas, in my Austin office today. Really happy to be back here in Austin with our team in Austin. And also happy to be sharing today's time with our beautiful case manager, Miao Chun Chen, who is in San Jose, Costa Rica. Hey, Miao.
Hi everyone. Really nice to be here today.
It's so good to have you. Miao is the case manager for our I-601 waivers and our I-601A waivers. I spoke last week in our video about the difference between the I-601 and the I-601A and how they work procedurally. But what they have in common is that they are both based on extreme hardship. They both require, both the I-601 and the I-601A, and other waivers as well, require a showing of extreme hardship to an individual, whether that be the applicant. In certain cases, it's the applicant, but most of the time it's extreme hardship to a qualifying relative. And the majority of cases, it's a showing of extreme hardship to a spouse or a parent who is a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident. Before we get into this topic, which affects so many immigrants, I want everyone to pause and hit the subscribe button to our YouTube channel. We are publishing videos regularly to keep everybody informed and updated, because we want every single immigrant in the United States to have good, high quality, trustworthy information about this process. Whether you have a lawyer or not, whether you're working directly with us or not, we want everyone to have as much good information as possible. So please hit subscribe so that we can accomplish that goal. So today I want to talk about extreme hardship. Miao is excellent at really proving up the extreme hardship in these waiver cases. And extreme hardship does not have a clear definition in the law. It has been defined over time through cases that have gone through courts. There is some information in the regulations about what constitutes extreme hardship, but it's not a concise, it's not like they say, well, if you have X, Y, or Z, then you have extreme hardship. What the law says is that it's a compilation of factors. It's a combination of factors, and they look at a large list of factors, including the age of the applicant, when the applicant came to the United States, how many people they know in the United States, how many family members they have, the qualifying relative's age, how long they've been in the United States, what languages do they speak, what kind of health issues do they have, what kind of family situations do they have. I mean, basically, what they are conveying in the law is that the extreme hardship standard is a holistic standard. It encompasses everything about the person's life, their finances, their health, their family ties, their community ties, their emotional health. And so it's not a simple formulaic approach in these waivers. In my experience of doing extreme hardship waivers for the last 17 years that I've been licensed, I have found that the most important item in any application for any extreme hardship waiver is the affidavit of the qualifying relative. It's the letter, the sworn statement that the applicant's qualifying relative, whether that be the applicant, him or herself, or the spouse or parent or child or whoever it may be, they have to write a sworn statement detailing how they will be affected if the applicant for the waiver isn't approved for the waiver. And so Miao has done a lot of these affidavits for us and has done them extremely well. You have a great sense of how those work. And for all of those viewers who don't have someone like you to write the affidavit with them and really help them develop it and make it effective, I want to share some tips that you have about how to make it as strong as possible. How do you really make that affidavit an effective document for winning an extreme hardship waiver. Miao, can you tell us anything at all about your process for pulling those together?
I think first we have to really know that writing these kinds of declarations or these affidavits are not something that's going to be pleasant. You have to be vulnerable. You have to put yourself in a position that's uncomfortable. You have to think of all of the experiences you've had throughout your life, the ones that have shaped you, the ones that have hurt you, the ones that you really thought you wouldn't survive through, and just write them down on a paper. Just make a list of all of those experiences that you've had. And then once you have all of them, then you can start writing your story. So affidavits are mostly about the client or the person telling their story. Where were you born? How was your childhood? At least in a very general sense. What were the difficulties that you've experienced? And then comes in the applicant or in the qualifying relative. How did this person shape me? How did this person affect me positively? How have I been able to overcome problems because of this person? It's bittersweet. You think about really difficult and horrible moments, but you also think about how you were able to overcome them with the support of this particular person.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really key. And, you know, if you think about a waiver application from the point of view of the officer, the immigration officer who is going to be making a decision about it, and you think about the hundreds of applications that they may have to do in a given period of time. I mean, they just look at one after, I mean, there are millions of these applications that have to be adjudicated every year. So it would be really easy for this officer to get bored, look at all this stack of paper and not see a human being. And so I think what you're describing is the way that we catch that officer's attention on an emotional level, that really does allow them to engage with the human being that this application represents. Because getting that human quality through a stack of paper is very challenging. And so I think that is something that you do very well. And in my experience, you know, for individuals who don't have, you know, someone like you, Miao, to help them write all these experiences in a way that's effective, having a psychologist do an assessment and help write everything out can also be a really, really smart idea. When you're working with one of these, Miao, how much time do you think you typically spend on, say, on just the interview and the affidavit, just preparing all of that?
So with interviews, they can be either very quick, depending on how detailed or how general clients can be. They can be 15 minutes, or I've also had interviews where we've talked for 3 hours. It really varies a lot. As for affidavits, even though they're all talking about hardships, we all have our own stories to write. So it really also varies. It's taken me from either 15 minutes per page to an hour and a half per page, depending on how much we have to write. But everything really varies. We all have our own stories to tell, our own pains, and it's really just about showing them in the paper.
Yeah. Showing them, and then I think also really connecting them, like you said, to that relationship and how key that relationship is in providing support and healing to the qualifying relative. I think is just like, you know, without that, your waiver, it can be very compelling, but also not complete if you don't actually show that connection to the qualifying relative. So, is there anything else you want to add or convey? Do you think that anything else that you think people ought to know about who are going through this process and trying to prepare their applications for their waivers?
So I would also like to add that it's not only about thinking about past experiences, but it's also asking your questions about the future. Hypothetical questions that, again, can be really hard, really challenging. How and where would I be if this person has to leave me? How would I suffer, not only financially, but really emotionally, in every aspect of life? How would my life change? How would my relationships change? And I always like to end the affidavits on a brighter note. So all of these pain, and then in the end, what are the hopes that we have for the future? What are our plans, short term, midterm, and long term?
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. That is also, yes, super, super important to think about, connecting past, present, and then possible futures together is really, really important also. So finally, I'd say the last thing, and this is not actually so much the hard part, but like once you have the affidavit done, in order to really flesh out the rest of the waiver, you need to have documents that sort of prove up what you're saying in the affidavit. So it's not enough in a waiver application to just write about medical hardships that you have because of a particular medical condition. You also need to provide doctors' notes or prescriptions or other documentation to prove up that you really do have that diagnosis and you really are taking those medications, or you really are attending those therapies or whatever it may be. It's not enough to talk about, the financial hardships that you've been able to overcome through this relationship. It's important to also include the tax documents and the pay stubs and the bills and the mortgage documents or whatever it is that you're referencing in your story. You also need to back up with additional documentation. And so a lot of times we end up with waiver packets that are really, really big, depending on what the situation is. And that is the way that it goes. Like it's important to flesh out and prove up everything that you're saying. Mm-hmm. So Miao, thank you so much for your time and for sharing with us about this skill and this really, really important process. So many immigrants in the United States are able to, become legal residents here because they're able to have, a waiver approved, and they can't do that without knowing this information, without being able to, it's, very, very not intuitive, the process. So having people like you share with us about how you make it happen is really valuable. So I very much appreciate it. And with that, we will sign off. Please tune in again soon. Next week, we will be back with additional videos about the immigration process and different aspects of it. And until then, we will see you later.